The Glenlivet is one of the top brands internationally, much to the credit of master distiller Jim Cryle. Whiskey Magazine named him the 2005 Ambassador of Whiskey.
We're in the mash house area of Glenlivet. This is where the malted barley is mixed with hot spring water. The sugars from the malted barley will dissolve in that water, and that sugar-rich liquid is collected for fermentation. Nobody is really quite sure of how different distillers.
As an independent, we asked George what their distribution system was like.
We distribute to, I believe, 38 countries at present, from the States, Canada, India, Hong Kong, Japan, Australasia. The only big countries at the moment we're not looking at is China and South America.
One of Speyside's more famous distilleries is Longmorn. The whiskey is not widely available, and it's not generally open to the public.
Longmorn was founded in 1894 by John Duff, who was well known in the whisky industry, as he had previous experience at Glenlossie and Glenronick distilleries. And he ran it right up until the early 1900s, when the company went bust. And from that point, the bank took over, and then the Grant family came in. And the Grant family ran the distillery right until 1970. So here at Longmorn it's quite unique because we have two still houses. We have a wash still house and a spirit still house.
Lying in a hollow in the lee of Cragganmore Hill, you'll find one of Diageo's Classic Six, Cragganmore Distillery, actually on the ground of Ballindock Castle Estate. Stuart Robertson was our host.
Folk used to say that John Smith built the distillery too small, and he took the tops off. Instead of having the traditional swan neck, he cut the top off and stuck the live pipe on the side. I don't believe that. This guy was a master distiller, and he's not going to do something like that. The other reason that may have been that there was what they call an agitator. Came down from the top right down to the bottom of the still, and copper virls swung round on the end of it to keep the still clean. Now that's fine in a wash still, but in a spirit still you don't need it. You don't have anything sticking to the bottom. So you can discount that as well. And I really honestly believe that John Smith designed the stills the way that he did because he wanted that certain character.
Chances are he's right, because John Smith had already been manager of the Macallan, Glenfarclas, and the Glenlivet. The Aberlour Distillery is just off the highway at the junction of the rivers Loire and Spey. The distillery is surrounded by great scenery in the shadow of Ben Rinnes. The community itself is more than 1,400 years old. Alan Winchester is distillery's manager.
We can't produce a Bolume anywhere else in the country.
It seems that every distillery has a special Scottish story, like bagpipes.
I moved down here to replace the legendary Kenny Fraser, the guy that played his bagpipes in the warehouses to soothe the whisky's nerves as it matured. And Kenny retired back in 1993, and I came down to Bolume, which is basically my hometown.
Aberlour was founded in 1879 by James Fleming. Prior to the 1960s, single malt whiskey was generally unknown to the world. It was in 1963 that the Grant family decided to take malt whiskey across the border to England. Now that familiar Glenfiddich bottle is the top-selling single malt worldwide.
Glenfiddich, our malt whisky, was introduced to the rest of the country. England, we exported to England in 1963, and really we saw very quick expansion into the various large markets throughout the world shortly after that. So we were the first ones to do. We opened our doors to the public in 1969, and again we were the first to do that, to have a visitor centre.
The regular distillery tour is there to I suppose give everyone who has absolutely no knowledge whatsoever in making whisky the basic information on how whisky is made.